there was different things like wearable fashion, or, they made drones, or there was all sorts of different things. And each course I found was sort of always building on it. So it was great. My kids loved it. I loved it because they were learning. So it was win-win for everyone. STEM is becoming, very important. And I've always, the kids, are interested in gaming. They're interested in, anything that involves the screen. And I'm always looking for, more educational ways to get my kids, involved, or hide education in something that they think is fun. So the programs that at Coded Hacks were, a little bit more than just sort of playing Minecraft or, some of these other things. I found that they really did a good job of, incorporating, science and technology, into, fun applications, whether it was sort of, robotics, or if it was games that they created, using things like Scratch. The kids were really able to, get very involved and, learn things about, I don't know, things that I don't even know. It's like a whole new language, all of this, this gaming and STEM. And I mean, I don't even know, they talk about coordinates and x-axes and y-axes. And I mean, this is a whole, from me, this is nothing that we ever learned when we were in school. So I just think it's an amazing opportunity for the kids to, learn some of these skills that are going to help them later in life. And then now with, them implementing all of this, coding into the curriculum at school, I feel that the kids have a huge, jump start on the rest of them. I remember, for most of the kids, for all three of my kids did it, they were instantly engaged and they instantly liked it. Like, I was surprised that how, once they got their accounts up, and once they, sort of started to learn some of the language, and once they, got their, passwords and all that stuff, sometimes at the beginning, getting everything sorted out is a little bit of a learning curve, but it was, how quickly they learned to, work with the programs, and they loved it. I found that, it wasn't much of an adjustment for the kids to do this. My eldest daughter, did a few years ago before the pandemic. She started the coding, and they were using Scratch, and she liked it right away. My second daughter, she loved it. She probably did 3 hours of coding a day, for probably 6 to 8 weeks. We did back-to-back courses all the time. And then my youngest son, he would do the exact same thing. He would do it later. And I loved it because my eldest daughter, who had done a lot of coding before it was online, she was able to help him. So they were able to work together. So I found that it was it really helped us a lot during the pandemic, that the kids were able to enjoy and, have some sort of learning that didn't involve me. So that's when I found that Coded Hacks was really, really, really helpful for us. Having that opportunity that the kids had to sort of work with an instructor in, small groups and, learn about something. So I find that sort of 3-month period when, we weren't doing a heck of a lot with our kids, I felt that my kids were really lucky that they were able to, learn so much about coding at that time. My second daughter, who just absolutely took to it right away, and she did the Scratch, then she moved on to Python, and she moved on to, like, she couldn't get enough of it. She was, every day she would, I think the program at that time was 2 or 3 hours, and then they would give them homework too, and she would be in her room coding, like, for another 2 hours. So I think that started after lunch, and she would be pretty much in her room working straight through till dinner time. She just went through all the different games, and she did all of the courses. There was one that was like called Harry Potter. There was a Disney one. There was a whatever. And I kept emailing Coded Hacks. I'm like, okay, what's the next course? Because we need to do it. She loved it, and she was so confident with it. And I was amazed at how she was able to, use the technology and she didn't need any help from me. She was able to do it. She had her, computer going in her iPad, and she was, just able, the instructors were helpful, and she would just learn so much every day. And again, like I said, this is all this, it's way over my head as a parent. So I'm not able to help them out at all. But she wasn't frustrated. She wasn't, anything. And this was before these kids were doing online learning. So for her, the other thing was, it was a huge opportunity for her later when we switched to online learning, because she already knew how to Zoom. She already knew how to do all of that technology that she had learned from Coded Hacks. So when we were moving into online learning, it made everything that much easier for her, because she knew that this sort of platform. But yeah, no, it was a really great experience for her. The biggest thing you can do is, Coded Hacks sends you this basically email that says, the type of accounts you need to set up, what you need to do before, and how you need to prepare for what you need to bring to camp, whether it's online or in person. And it's very important to set that up in advance, like to make sure all your passwords are done, and all of the different programs you have downloaded. That's the biggest thing, I think, is make sure that, that whatever Coded Hack sends you, that you have all of that information set up and ready, so that your kid can be best set up for success. Because when there's a few kids in the class, and if all of a sudden you're setting up your Scratch account for the first time or whatever it is, it can be frustrating for a child. So if you do that in advance and have them all ready, it just works out a lot better for everyone. There was certainly no forcing my kids to go to this camp, or there was no buy-in with Coded Hacks. If they were going to Coded Hacks, off they would go, whether it was in person, or if they're going up to their bedroom or sitting in the dining room in front of their computers. They were always very keen and happy to be doing whatever camp they were doing at Coded Hacks. It certainly wasn't something I had to force them to do. It was something they loved. It's not gimmicky. It's like I can tell that they're using real sort of math and science skills they were learning. Like, I remember they would even bring guest experts in sometimes to the camps. And so the kids were able to sort of understand how they can, apply, whatever information they learned, into the real world. So these camps sort of went beyond, just playing games, and the kids really, really learned information that they're going to use for their whole life, and that you can understand how they're, learning and moving forward. So I was really impressed by how kind of more professional approach Coded Hacks takes to these camps, rather than it's not at all child care. It's an experience for your child that they're going to learn, and they're going to use these skills for their whole life.